Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I will call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting for Monday, February 5th. And if we could please do roll call.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Anfield.
Here.
Chrisman.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if you could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if willing and able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes for meeting minutes of January 16th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, and approved by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll now open it up to public forum, where we'll have speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. I know we have quite a few speakers tonight, so if you do have something that's a repeat, feel free to say you're repeating, but also you have your 5 minutes, so please don't feel you have to do that. So again, if anybody would like to speak, please. Just name and city for the record, please.
I'm Major Rob Green of Cedar Falls, representing Civil Air Patrol tonight. It's an honor to be here with you this evening in my new role as commander of the 4th Iowa Black Hawk County Composite Squadron. Joining me tonight is Cadet Airman Evan McKinnon. So glad to have him with us as well. I'm here to express my thanks to Director Birdie and to the Public Safety Department for hosting our change of command ceremony at the Public Safety Center on January 20th. The training room was a great venue, and the on-duty fire shift was kind enough to provide facility tours to dignitaries and guests afterward. And Mayor Loddick, thank you very much for joining us. It meant a lot to have your presence there. The Black Hawk County Composite Squadron meets Thursday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Waterloo Regional Airport. Since its founding in 2020, we've grown to nearly 50 volunteer members, both adults and cadets aged 12 to 18 years old. Our 3 congressionally chartered missions are emergency services, aerospace education, and cadet programs. We couldn't complete these missions without the support of our city and county and state partners. Our 2 meeting locations are provided at no cost by the City of Waterloo and the Iowa National Guard, and our hangar fees for our aircraft are covered by the Black Hawk County Emergency Management Agency. We've also received help from the City of Cedar Falls for temporary space for our training and our ceremonies. So again, thank you very much. In the years ahead, we'll look to partner with the Cedar Falls Public Library for aerospace education programs, particularly as Cedar Falls astronaut Raj Achari trains and prepares for his upcoming Artemis mission to return humans to the moon, and this time to stay. Mayor Loddick, I cordially invite you, the council, and staff to visit any of our weekly squadron meetings, Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at the Waterloo Regional Airport main terminal. You can see our senior members and cadets in action as we train, practice, drill, teach, and learn in topics ranging from leadership to physical fitness to aviation and drill and ceremonies. During my time as squadron commander, I'll extend invitations to you as elected officials to present our major milestone promotion awards to our fantastic cadets, which is a long-standing CAP tradition. Thank you again for your time, and please let me know how Civil Air Patrol, the United States Air Force Auxiliary, can be of service to the people and city of Cedar Falls. Feel free to reach out to me with questions at rgreen@cap.gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major Green. And thank you for the work that you guys do for the community. Andrew. Just name and city, and also if you do not feel comfortable saying your name, also you can say just city.
Sandra Escal, Cedar Falls resident. I'm here tonight, just as I was on December 18th of last year, to urge the Cedar Falls City Council to support a resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the West Bank, Palestine. At the time of the December 18th council meeting, there was no text for such a resolution, and not a single municipal government in Iowa had yet advocated for a ceasefire. Since then, however, Iowa City City Council, Coralville City Council, and the Johnson County Board of Supervisors have all passed ceasefire resolutions, and groups of organizers in Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, and Exira, Iowa are currently working to pass their own. And here, a collective of residents from across the Cedar Valley, including myself, have introduced identical ceasefire resolution drafts to the city councils of both Cedar Falls and Waterloo. The text largely draws from Iowa City's ceasefire resolution, which in turn was based off the Ceasefire Now resolution proposed by Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib in the U.S. House. Both the Cedar Falls and Waterloo ceasefire resolutions have the official endorsement of their respective cities' Human Rights Commission. These commissions are also spearheading the planning of upcoming educational events on Palestine for community members in response to our efforts. And yet, this council has asserted that it will not consider our ceasefire resolution on its agenda, that it's not relevant to city business, that a local city government can't really change anything, that it doesn't want to take sides, and that our efforts would be better spent elsewhere. Well, when cities and local officials across the state offered their prayers, condolences, and solidarity with Israelis in October, yet said nothing in the face of the 100-plus day genocide of the Palestinian people, you make this a local issue. When millions of dollars worth of Iowans' income taxes are being used for military aid to Israel, you make this a local issue. When the Iowa House passes a resolution which unconditionally supports Israel's genocide, condemns any demand for a ceasefire, and frames supporters of Israel as a vulnerable class of people that deserve the vigilant protection of local law enforcement agencies, you make this a local issue. When 9 protesters advocating for Palestinian liberation are arrested and brutalized by University of Iowa Police Department officers following a nonviolent demonstration at Kinnick Football Stadium in Iowa City, you make this a local issue. When Palestinian and Muslim Iowans are afraid to publicly mourn for those in Gaza and West Bank, let alone express public solidarity and support due to the rampant Islamophobia, anti-Arab, and anti-Palestinian bigotry, you make this a local issue. When students at Iowa universities are pressured by Israeli interest groups to bring pro-Israeli speakers to campus in an effort to dispel anti-Israel fever, you make this a local issue. And when members of our very group have been intimidated at our places of work or have had their jobs threatened for speaking out in support of a ceasefire, you certainly make this a local issue. A ceasefire resolution is not merely a symbolic gesture of solidarity with the Palestinian people. It puts real pressure on our government leaders to bring about legislation and political actions that could eventually lead to an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the West Bank. And if you believe that our efforts would be better directed towards Joni Ernst, Chuck Grassley, Ashley Henson, and our other representatives in Congress, I can assure you that folks across Iowa have been calling them, emailing them, pressuring them, been at their doorstep, pressuring them for a ceasefire since October 7th, and have never stopped. But we are here asking this of you specifically today. And I want to echo the sentiments of Cedar Rapids organizers who engaged in a similar meeting with their city council just a couple weeks ago. How close does a genocide have to be for you to speak out against it? Your humanity doesn't just simply stop at the Cedar Falls city borders. And I'm open to dialogue and alternative resolutions or actions for this, yet I've heard nothing from you as a council. So if you really think this is an important conversation to have, I expect each and every single one of you to be in attendance at the upcoming educational teach-in, because surely you will not sit there and tell me that you're as educated as you can be regarding this humanitarian crisis. Again, I'm asking you to do your job and listen to your constituents. Support the community's resolution for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Palestine. It's the least you can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Name and city for the record, please.
My name is Ev Wilson, and I'm a resident of Waterloo. Resolution supporting a permanent ceasefire in Palestine and Israel, the return of all hostages, and the delivery of humanitarian aid, and affirming opposition to anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Arab bigotry, with the aim of achieving a just and lasting political solution. Whereas all human life is precious, and the targeting of civilians is a violation of international humanitarian law. And whereas approximately 1,200 Israelis were killed on October 7th, over 23,200 Palestinians have been killed, of which 10,000 were children, with over 59,600 wounded, and people of other nationalities have been killed between October 7th, 2023, and January 11th, 2024, and where among those lives lost are 136 United Nations staff, over 300 healthcare workers, and 79 journalists, and whereas hundreds of thousands of lives are at imminent risk Continued hostilities have forced 85% of Palestinians in Gaza and 5 to 10% of Israelis to flee their homes. And whereas hundreds of thousands of lives are at imminent risk without an immediate permanent ceasefire, restoration of basic needs, and delivery of adequate and unconditional humanitarian aid without delay to Palestinian civilian non-combatants. And whereas the United States government and our elected leaders hold immense diplomatic power to save Palestinian and Israeli lives, and U.S. law requires that foreign military aid not be used in the contravention of international law. And whereas the majority of nations in the UN have voted in favor for a ceasefire resolution, and millions of people worldwide, including residents of Waterloo and Cedar Falls, have joined in peaceful protests since October 7th to amplify this call. And whereas Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian/anti-Arab bigotry, and anti-Semitism have risen significantly across the United States and around the world with direct impacts on communities, from synagogues and mosques to schools, universities, homes, offices, and places where communities gather, as well as protests and rallies. And whereas all of these forms of bigotry, violence, and oppression serve to divide our communities and weaken our efforts to achieve collective safety, justice, and true multi-ethnic, multiracial, multi-religious democracy here and everywhere. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the City Council of Cedar Falls that the City Council of Cedar Falls unequivocally condemns the killing of civilians in Gaza and the West Bank by the State of Israel, and the City of Cedar Falls affirms its commitment to combat anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab bigotry, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. And the City of Cedar Falls affirms its support for all people in Palestine and Israel to live in peace, justice, and security. And the City of Cedar Falls affirms its support for the rights of all people, including residents of Cedar Falls, to live, learn, work, play, worship, and engage in peaceful protest, all without intimidation, coercion, or the threat of violence. And the City of Cedar Falls asks our congregational delegation to support all resolutions and legislation that match the values stated throughout this Cedar Falls resolution, especially those to aim to alleviate the urgent humanitarian disaster in Gaza and the release of Israeli hostages, such as U.S. House Resolution number 786. And the City of Cedar Falls affirms First Amendment rights of citizens to criticize government or government policy, and affirms that criticism of governments in Israel and Palestine is not inherently anti-Semitic or anti-Arab. And the City of Cedar Falls supports the delivery of immediate, unconditional, and sufficient humanitarian aid to the non-combatant people of Gaza. And the City of Cedar Falls resolves that the Cedar Falls Clerk's Office will provide a copy of this resolution to the members of the Iowa State Legislature, the Iowa State Governor, the United States Congregational Delegations from Iowa, and the President of the United States.
Thank you. Yes, speakers, yes. Name and address for the record, please, or city.
Name is Brandon Sanders, Waterloo resident. Also, I have a residency in Cedar Falls for my father. He lives in Arizona part-time, Cedar Falls part-time, lives on First Street. Ever since the state has decided to make First Street a 5-lane, we were fined because the plows are sending snow all the way over. That's 5 lanes that is getting sent onto a property that the state has turned into domain. The property next to us is owned by the state and is not taken care of at all times. We're also on an alley, so we are responsible for removing the snow for a 5-lane highway on our property that keeps getting sent over. So now we're responsible to go out multiple times. My father is 63. I have another residence. I also work 3 different jobs, so I'm trying to figure out a resolution and possibly have somebody come out so we can figure out this. Plus, since that property has been shrunk because they had to take more for the highway, we have a retaining wall so you guys could hold back all that soil and everything. So it's not like we can just blow it out back onto the highway, because that's that's very frowned upon. And we can't shoot it over a 3.5-foot retaining wall now. So I would like to figure out a way that we can resolve this, or especially when we had a record snowfall in 1 week. So I would, yes.
I'm Gil Schultz. I'm Ward 1. You're in my ward. I'd like to talk with you, and then we'll get with Mr. Heath and Mr. Schrage. So if you could get me your contact, I'll reach out to you tomorrow. And
Absolutely.
We'll try to come up with something.
Because I talked with Mr. Spray, and this is the resolution that he came up with, so I'm trying to
And
abide
it's
by
yep,
what he
it's
said.
a good step in the right direction. We all can sympathize with you on snow removal, and when I live on a corner that I get from both sides, right? So let's get together. I think we can resolve something here.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Brandon. Name and city for the record, please.
I'm Byron Plumley, he, him, 1716 Park Drive, Cedar Falls. I'm speaking in support of the Cedar Falls resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. I realize that you haven't actually advanced a resolution, but I am hopeful. If the wording of the resolution is not precise, I hope all of you might help so that the voice of Cedar Falls citizens will call for a ceasefire. My comments are grounded in two things. First, my own values. I identify myself as a nonviolent, peace and justice educator and activist. I believe that life is sacred and that we're all part of the web of life. Anything we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Second, my sources of information are independent journalists in war zones, nonviolent sources like Jewish Voices for Peace or American Rabbis Call for Ceasefire, and many others. I begin this evening with a quote from A.J. Muste. "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." I realize that the work of the City Council is to address issues in our local community. However, we are also U.S. citizens, and we must address issues at the state and national level when those issues impact our lives, and the war in Gaza is such an issue. To be clear, I do not condone the violence of Hamas in killing and kidnapping Israeli citizens, nor do I condone the Israeli bombing and killing of Palestinian citizens. The U.S. government is supplying the weapons to the state of Israel for the war in Gaza. The bombs that are killing civilians and destroying the infrastructure of Gaza say "Made in the USA." The federal taxes of citizens in Cedar Falls are being used to pay for the bombs. We are complicit in this war. In Martin Luther King's Vietnam speech, he reminded us that a time comes when silence is betrayal. At this time, with the war in Gaza, our silence is complicity in the Israeli genocide. We must say, "Not in our name." Oh, I know that Israel denies genocide and war crimes, but the world sees the intentional destruction of hospitals, shelters, schools, and homes. The world sees the starvation that results from the Israeli blockade of denying food and water. The world sees the murder of thousands of civilians. It's time for U.S. citizens to demand that our government stop the war. The only way for the U.S. to play a positive role is to stop providing the weapons. We can't be the peacemakers at the same time that we are supplying the bombs. The U.S. has the power to halt the genocide in Gaza by stopping the shipment of weapons to Israel and demanding a ceasefire. The U.S. can demand and help provide humanitarian aid. The U.S. can support regional peace building with Israel, the Arab states, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas at the table. Dr. King, Martin Luther King, reminded us The choice is nonviolence or non-existence. As citizens of Cedar Falls, we have a moral obligation to tell our government to stop the killing. We can join our voice with city councils across the country in calling for a ceasefire. Join with Oakland, with Chicago, with Detroit, with Iowa City, with Coralville, and others to demand peace and security for Israel and Palestine. If we cannot at least call for a ceasefire, then who have we become? That we will allow, but also support the killing of innocent Palestinian civilians through bombing and starvation. What do we see when we look in the mirror? The resolution is simple. Stop the killing for the sake of Israelis and Palestinians. And I'm happy to visit with anyone about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Just name and city, please.
Hello, I'm Amelia Goera. I'm a student at UNI, and I've grown up here in Cedar Falls. So I want to first talk with you about the comments that a ceasefire resolution is not a city council issue, right? So when I hear that a ceasefire resolution is not a city council issue, I hear that the safety and the support of our Muslim community is not a priority. The prioritizing the safety of that community in the face of what is really intense fear that myself, and I would venture to say many of you up here, do not know what it is like to have Islamophobia focused at you. And we're talking about the Council of American Islamic Relations reported this year that some 3,500 plus reports in the last 4 months, the 4 months, October to December, of discrimination to the Muslim community. And that's a 200% increase, just under 200% in those 4 months. And we're talking employment discrimination, we're talking education discrimination, and we're talking hate crimes, right? We are not immune to this here. So the passing of a ceasefire is a response to the fear and the grief of our community. It is not complicated, right? A ceasefire says to our Muslim community that we recognize your humanity. It is safe for you to grieve here, right? And we love you. So it is really a simple yes or no. We want the bombing to stop, right? And that's not a hard thing to answer. And I would say that on the topic of the city councils and whether or not it's city council business, you know, we all know the city council does not determine international law. Everybody here knows that, right? But we need to ask ourselves, why is it that 70 and a quickly growing number of city councils across the country are passing these resolutions, right? Why is that? And if we pass a ceasefire resolution, we're joining in Iowa, Iowa City, with 75,000 people in it, and then all the way down to Exira with 700 people in it. I think that we fall somewhere in there. If you don't feel that you know enough to make a decision, the Human Rights Commission is having an event this month. We'll make sure everybody knows about it. We'd love to see you there. This group here is not just a few people, okay? There are a lot of us who care very much. And we are many, we are residents, we are now Main Street and College Hill businesses. are agreeing to sign on that they support the ceasefire resolution, and I know that's something that we all care about, that you guys specifically are concerned about. So they are willing to join in on this and tell you what they want, right? That's exciting. So we are not going away. We will continue asking you, and we will continue approaching you for your help and your bravery. That is not a threat. It's an invitation to hear us and be courageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Name and city, please.
Shirley Whiteside. I'm a resident of Cedar Falls, she, her. Like the previous speaker said, cities and towns all over the country and many in Iowa are passing resolutions for a ceasefire in Gaza and negotiation toward peace in the Middle East. Why should Cedar Falls care about this issue when many direct local issues are demanding time and attention? There's snow and other things. This is a local issue. Some residents of our community are survivors of this Serbian siege on the Bosnian Muslims. Trauma is always fresh, and traumatized populations share that. This summer, I met an Iowan of Palestinian roots at a neighborhood party. He now lives with his wife and children in the West Bank of Palestine, which is also experiencing crisis with this prolonged attack. People living there are routinely pulled out of their homes or arrested on the street by the Israeli government just for being Palestinian. He teaches in a university, and when I met him, he was accompanying a Palestinian student just arriving here in Iowa to begin his studies in sustainable agriculture. Can either of these men feel safe here in our community? I think not. Lay low, stay invisible, don't share your experience, don't rock the boat. Since October 7th, the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas, the Israeli Air Force has unleashed more than 65,000 tons of bombs on Gaza, an area the size of Detroit. Unimaginable destruction. Those of us who are here to speak publicly are merely asking our local government to do what our national government has not, to say clearly we, like the World Court, see the violation of human rights being committed with this U.S. fortified assault on Gaza. The state of Iowa is passing legislation that criminalizes speaking out against the mass killing of a captive civilian population. It supports the lie that speaking the truth is anti-Semitic. Iowa's introduction of House File 2077 justifies punitive action on any student locally here at UNI or Hawkeye Community College who protests Israel's slaughter in Gaza. If you are born Palestinian or Muslim, you are supporting terror. If you attend a Jewish Voices for Peace meeting, you are supporting terror. If you are a nonviolent activist, you are supporting terror. Those are the words they use, terror. This chips away at what remains of our freedoms to speak out in the U.S. It supports the present lie that Israel's massive bombing and denial of food and medicine to children can be labeled self-defense. I heard Mayor Loddick say everyone would like this suffering to end. How are we to witness that? Surely not by pretending the assault is okay. In this particular moment in history, our powerful nation is supporting a genocide, and it is not okay. Martin Luther King's Beyond Vietnam speech the year before he was assassinated was met with criticism from every angle. It was an unpopular speech. Nobody liked that he said the things he said. But he could not reconcile the images of napalm children and wounded and dead soldiers being returned from the war in Vietnam, using precious resources for destruction and not for life-giving purpose. The weapons used in Vietnam were stamped made in the USA, as are Israel's weapons. Have we learned nothing from history? Please reconsider your rejection of introducing a ceasefire resolution that sends a message to citizens of our community who are disrespected by the lies fueling this genocide. We are asking for a message to be sent to our federal leaders demanding a call for a permanent ceasefire and the return of all captives, the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid, condemnation of attacks on both sides, and assurance that residents of Cedar Falls are safe here. The longer this siege continues unchallenged, the less safe persons anywhere are. The world is watching the U.S. continue to pour fuel on a bonfire. Please pass a resolution supporting a path to peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Name and city, please.
All right. Sonia Bocek, Cedar Falls, and I'm hoping my voice is going to hang in there with me. All right. Good evening, council members. I'm here today to share some thoughts and concerns. As elected city officials, it is obviously important for you to represent and be in touch with your constituents, and I'm interested to know how you communicate with your constituents and make sure that your votes represent the people. Personally, I've never actually spoken to my council person from my ward. So you may have special projects, issues that you're passionate about, and I think that is fine, but you still must represent the people that put you in this position. I, for one, know that you have constituents that have concerns about the ceasefire, and in the past, we have seen, right here in this room, people show up for issues that they're passionate about, and sometimes the council might not have wanted to hear them. The city council should be concerned, should the city council be concerned with international issues? I would say yes. In the business you do over a course of the year, the majority of the city would be at the city level. But there must be a small percentage of your time that needs to be dedicated to global concerns. Why? For several reasons. One, we have a university here that has international students. We must be aware of those students' needs, what they are, and the challenges they may face. Our businesses are global industries. John Deere has a thriving international market. In finance, many of your transactions with your 401k and pension plans are handled by international workforce. While working for Principal Financial Group, we had offices in South America, India, and Southeast Asia. Your personal information is handled across the globe. Not so long ago, a virus started to spread in Wuhan, China. It didn't take too long before it was here, taking lives right here in this city. Yes, international concerns are worth the city council's time, and other cities are addressing these concerns as well. Please make sure that when people present the information that you should take them seriously. If you don't believe it or are confused, please do your own research. Understand the concepts that are being addressed, like genocide and land grabs. When people hear of genocide, they think of the Holocaust. Sadly, the world has endured many situations of genocide. What is genocide? What does it look like? What is interesting is it is something that is done in the open. Genocide is easy to do if you control the narrative. Genocide of the Native Americans here was controlled by the media for decades. Hey, they're given free food, but the food was rotten. The natives were given the best education, but they were stripped of their culture. Natives received free health care that included sterilization, which is definitely a form of genocide. Peter Longerich, a historian, argued that the Holocaust was an open secret by early 1943, and some think even earlier. Many German citizens stated that they did not know of the crimes that the Nazis were committing. Davon haben wir nicht gewusst. We know nothing about that. So let's not let history repeat itself. If you kill a whole generation of people, that is genocide, and the results are far-reaching. Bombs dropped on hospitals filled with newborns, elementary schools bombed, cutting off food and water to those isolated in government-created ghettos. In a very short time, a generation is gone. This year, I invited a Jewish professor to speak in one of my sociology classes. He shared his mother had no cousins. No one else escaped the Nazi army. For many of us, that's hard to believe, but it's the truth. And when he shared that, I felt no need for him to prove it to me or qualify his statement. That was his family's lived experience. You can see the effect of genocide in many communities and certainly on the reservations. Just a few weeks ago, I did not know much about what was happening in Gaza, but I took the time to listen to people who were working hard for the resolution for a ceasefire. I learned a lot. There are clear parallels between what was happening there and things happening in my own family's history. I am so grateful that I learned we all should, and we should also believe them. In 2024, we should have a better way to resolve land boundaries and occupancies that do not include war. War, if it must exist, should be between soldiers and military, not civilians. Bombs and bullets do not discriminate. An Israeli bomb that still kills Israelis. A Palestinian bullet will not reroute itself to miss a Palestinian and only kills Israelis. A call for a ceasefire is just that, a call to stop fighting. That is the issue in the simplest terms, and that's easy to understand. We want the fighting to stop. That does not consist of picking any one side. It just means stop killing.
Thank you, Sonia. Name and city, please.
My name is Aliah Rahman. I live in Waterloo, but I work as a software engineer and a digital security provider, keeping clients safe in Cedar Falls. I come from a Muslim family, and I have lifelong relationships of work, family, great love, and profound loss with Palestinian people of multiple faiths. Mayor Loddick has communicated that after having conversations with councilors, most or all of you do not feel that it is the role of city electeds to hear the ceasefire resolution read here tonight. We also received feedback from one council member who, somewhat confusingly, both expressed a lack of education about the present on-the-ground reality in Palestine and also suggested adjustments to the resolution's description of what is happening in Palestine so that it might be more amenable to supporters of the party committing genocide in Gaza. All this while also stating that the city should not consider the resolution. I am saddened whenever I am reminded that in segregated parts of the United States, it is normal for white policymakers to act or refuse to act on issues that impact communities like mine without knowledge of our lives. I understand that there is discomfort. I am also uncomfortable. The reason it isn't obvious that this is city business is because there shouldn't be a reality in which there are already well-known instructions for how cities and citizens speak in unison to stop a runaway federal government and Iowa legislature that are violently ignoring international human rights law, instructing our local police to protect supporters of Israel only, meaning not us, and with each day, further drenching the fabric of American society in blood, paying for a genocide with our taxes and providing political cover that is in our name but against our consent. 54, moving on to 70 cities across this country have already finished passing ceasefire resolutions because our elected leaders at the federal and state level have passed laws on this issue by which they abdicate their responsibilities toward even life itself, to speak nothing of liberty or the pursuit of happiness. So the question is not whether this is city business. The question is whether this is something that this city council wants to deal with. The people in this room are already organizing business owners and faith leaders, breaking media blackouts, and protesting in cities whose leaders don't just want this inconvenient thing to go away. But we also need anyone in our own state or local government to advocate for us. The ability to sleep at night and not wake up each morning wondering if my friends in Palestine have been killed by bombs that my tax money paid for is a basic quality of life issue for me. Your constituents are not asking you to set or comment on international policy. We are simply asking you to pass along a message to our own government. We are asking you to tell the state capitol and the federal government on our behalf, our residents in this city do not want this to be what it means to be American or Iowan. We are asking you to understand that the real sides here are not what we're being told they are, but rather you are either with life or against it. And we want to live in a place that affirms life. This is not just any conflict. We are standing on this precipice with you here in this profoundly American slaughter of historical proportions. To be told this cannot even be taken up for conversation locally has already sadly made me ashamed to be working here, and I don't want to live like this anymore. With the balance of my time, let me ask us to think about what discomfort can do for us when we don't turn away from it. For sometimes that is when we are most human, and isn't that what government is supposed to be enabling? Let me say that people like me are not numbers. Let me not fail to speak names or in reciting the death toll make the mistake of converting the sum of many beautiful lives lived into a flat total of anonymous, expendable loss. Just the journalists, Israeli, Palestinian, and Lebanese, killed since October 7th. Mohammed Atallah, Iyad al-Ruagh, Yazan al-Zuwaidi, Mohammed Jamal Sobi al-Salatini, Ahmed Bider, Hamza Al-Dakhdu, Mustafa Thuraya, Akram Al-Shafi, Jabar Abu Hadrus, Mohammed Khaireddin, Ahmed Khaireddin, Mohammed Al-If, Mohammed Al-Zaituniya, Ahmed Jamal Al-Madhun, Mohammed Nasser Abu Hawaidi, Mohammed Khalifa, Adel Zarab, Abdullah Alwan, Assam Kamal Musa, Hanin Kashtan, Samir Abu Daqqa, Dua Jabur, Ola Atalla, Hassan Farajallah, Shaima Al-Ghasar, Abdullah Darwish, Montasar Al-Sawaf. That is only January, moving backwards. I respect the time of other people here, so I will have to come back to finish this list. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliah. Do we have any other speakers tonight? Public. Name and city, please.
My name is Mark Succi. I live up in 3202 Cypress Avenue, Cedar Falls, up in the North Cedar area. And I would like to thank the city and the council for all the things they have done for the North Cedar area, for the bioswales, the improvements on Center Street and everything. And the four-way stop that they put in, I think it's been a benefit. And what I'm here to talk about is the speed limit from Longview up to Lone Tree Road. And I'm going to compare it with two other roads in this town. And I'm going to first start with Main Street, which is a brand new street from 12th down to 6th Street. It's 25 miles an hour. It's a 2-lane road with a middle turning lane, curbs on the side, nice safe street, 25 miles an hour. You got First Street, 4-lane road with a turning lane in the middle, curbs on the side, nice and safe, 30 miles an hour. Then you got Center Street. It's a 2-lane road that has put in bioswales on the side, so you got ditches now on the sides of the road. It's a narrow 2-lane road. Parts of it is 35 miles an hour, and just a section by the school zone is 25. So what I'm suggesting is from Western up to Lone Tree Road be made all 25 miles an hour. And I'm only talking about 2 blocks on the north end of it and 2 blocks on the south end of it. And it only makes sense because it's all residential, some businesses on there, and when you come in from the north and you hit the stop sign at Lone Tree Road, for 2 blocks they're saying, okay, you can go 35, but then you got to slow down to 25. Why don't you just start at 25 right there and keep it there? And then when you're coming from the south, when you get up to Lance past the Casey's General Store, they say, okay, go to 35, but for 2 blocks then you got to come to a stop sign. So just make it 25 there, and it's all residential, it's business. And then when you're south of the school zone, it's just for 2 blocks there. Just make it 25. So I'm asking like for 4 blocks to make that whole corridor, what's along residential up to Lone Tree Road, just make it a 25 mile an hour zone. And you know what? This year, the Cedar Falls Historical Society is going to showcase the North Cedar area. They're going to showcase the Natural Resource Project, Hillside Cemetery, Island Park, and the Eddie Bowles House. So you're going to expect a lot more residents, a lot more visitors into that area. You got a bike trail down the thing. You got bioswales down the side. With a slower speed limit, it would give the residents and visitors a better chance to see the beauty that's been created along Center Street, and it would make it a safer trip in that little bit of corridor along the residential and business area of that part of town. So it's not asking much. It's like 4 blocks. 2 blocks on the south end, 2 blocks on the north end. Just make that all the same speed limit, and you won't have to have people speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, and I just think it would be a better thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Just name and city, please.
Hi, my name is Archer. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm from Cedar Falls. I am a recent graduate from UNI, and I would like to stay in Cedar Falls. And I say this, and I want to keep this short because so many others have said everything that needs to be said about calling the ceasefire over in Gaza. But we want you to know how important calling this is. So I'm here to say everything again, but not everything. We have been coming to you all across generations, here today, we've all seen it, asking you for one thing, just to call for peace. We've seen how simple that can be, and you can join the call from all other places across the state and the country. We need to call for this end to violence. What do you say by ignoring this call to ceasefire? What do you say to the young ones? What do you say to our recent and current students? What do you say to our Palestinian citizens? What do you say to anyone who's ever thought, maybe other people don't like me and maybe I'm not safe here? What do you say by not having this ceasefire? What do you tell your citizens across generations by ignoring this call? We are all humans, here in Iowa, here in the US, and across in Gaza. Citizens deserve to live. That's non-negotiable. We are the people. Listen to us. Push forward this ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and city, please.
My name is Nick Tripp. I live in Cedar Falls, and I support the call for the city council to support a ceasefire. I'm also almost in May, graduate from UNI. I'm a social worker, and so it is my job to care about people, but it's also your guys' job to care because you are a city council. This council is for the people of the city, and it's paid by the taxpayers of the city. And I'm a part of this city, so it's your job to also care about what I care about. So yes, you guys can vote on a ceasefire. Many others tonight have mentioned all of the other places and people who have also called for in support of a ceasefire and are using that as a way to also try to get you guys to call for a ceasefire. But we shouldn't just be doing this because others are. As my mother taught me, as all of your mothers also taught you, it doesn't matter what other people are doing. If other people are doing it and it's wrong, you shouldn't do it. If it's right, it shouldn't matter who else is doing it. You should just do it. We should also be asking ourselves why you don't support a ceasefire. I really do want you to think about that. The reasons that you have running in your mind thinking, okay, I don't think I should vote on this, or maybe, no, I don't think. Is that reason that you're coming up with truly a good enough reason? You guys are all the voice of our people here, and obviously, as we've seen, everybody who's come up to this stand today, who have made the time to come down here, have all talked in support of a ceasefire. And when you think about your reason, is it truly good enough? I do wonder, is it good enough that when you explain to your grandchildren later on, when they come to you and ask, how was your time on city council, and they ask you about this decision, is the reason that you're going to give them a good enough reason to not vote in support of a ceasefire? Unfortunately, again, this is a genocide that will be in our history books, already is in our history books, and when you tell them maybe that you didn't vote in support of a ceasefire, is it a good enough reason? And honestly, whatever reason you give to them or you give to us right now to not support a ceasefire will never be good enough. And I just want you to remember that even though it is city council, I was brought up to believe that small town, small rural city council is still a big, important part to our democracy. So it may feel like a small vote, but God, it isn't. It truly isn't. So I ask you to step into a brave space, as we say in social work, and to really consider, what is being brave? It's only, the United States was brought up on people who were being brave just by supporting what's right. What is right? A ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any other speakers tonight? Ms. Stummy. Name and city for the record, please.
My name is Larry Stummy. I'm a pastor of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Cedar Falls. Since early this summer, Dr. Michael Blackwell has appeared before you at your meetings on the 1st and 3rd of each day, addressing you as leaders of the Cedar Falls, Waterloo area to deal with a basic problem that is a real problem that has existed for generations in this community and now gives us a chance to finally deal with it. As leaders, we are challenging you to accept that one. I was fortunate enough to be with Dr. Blackwell when my health allowed it, to also join and back him in that. Our single message is this: it's our basic duty as leaders of this community that the plight of the black citizens of Waterloo, Cedar Falls is obvious and very, very serious. For instance, the living conditions of the north of the river compared with Cedar Falls are north of the ridge of Williston in Waterloo. There's a real contrast. There are over 70 homes in that area that are classified as dilapidated, that the city has to take care of. The Waterloo Cedar Falls deficiencies have been identified by your own Human Rights Commission and by the Wall Street 24/7 Commission, finding that there is a great disparity between blacks and whites in our community. When it comes to income, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to housing, when it comes to incarceration, there is a vast difference, and it's been in existence for centuries, for a long time. Not for centuries, but for decades. And we now have a chance to do something about it. It's been identified, and all we're asking is to work as a unit, because we are one city, regardless of the fact that we call ourselves Waterloo or Cedar Falls. We are one area, and we can solve these problems. We have the resources, we have the ability, but we have to work together, and we have to identify the workers that have been working in this area and find the deficiencies. It means we have to use all the resources of the city and the county and the federal government to come down on these issues and improve these conditions and correct them, because they've been in with us for centuries. But we have the opportunity, and we also have the tremendous opportunity to have the resources of some of the largest companies in the world right in our midst. And they are receiving the benefits of the workers who have been brought in, who have been brought into this community, the black workers that were brought in earlier in the 20th century. They've received the benefits, and it's their responsibility to also kick in with finances, because it's going to take money. It's not going to happen. The problems that are demonstrated in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and the black community are not problems that happened overnight. They've happened for a long time, and they're not going to be solved in a short time. But they can be solved because we have the resources, if we have the ability to work together to do that. And that's what we have been calling for when we visit the Waterloo Cedar the council and we visit you, just to keep prodding you to work to solve this problem, because we can. It's a serious problem that has affected lives of thousands of people, 12,000 blacks in our community, many of whom are unemployed, underpaid, and live in lousy housing. We can do it, and we're going to keep on reminding you. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Stummy. Name and city, please.
Michael Blackwell, and I live in Cedar Falls. I grew up in Connecticut, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Stratford, Connecticut, and finally New Haven, Connecticut. And I was a student at Yale Divinity School for my master's degree, Master of Divinity degree. And locally in New Haven, there are a group of black pastors, a lot of them, that formed an association of New Haven clergy. And so I started to go to those meetings, and fortunately or unfortunately, I was asked to head up the community outreach committee of that organization. Even though all those pastors were there long before I got there, they wanted somebody new and fresh to be there, I guess, because they had worn out their welcome already. So we had to decide what we were going to do. One thing we did was to organize a war against drugs. And the way it sounds, it would sound like something that Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan wanted to do, and incarcerate black people on a massive scale. But what we wanted them to do was to look at not incarcerating drug addicted people, but helping them to detox and to get healthy again. So we went to the New Haven City Council, and we asked them to consider gathering civic leaders together, the police department, the medical professionals together, to address the issue of drug addiction in New Haven. And they did get together, and they also passed resolutions to the state legislature to deal with the issue. So this is a local city council that have other concerns pressing on them, but nevertheless it was a concern of the people. And when people have concern, the local leaders need to take it up and understand it and try to deal with it. And so, we loved the success that we had, so we decided also to organize people to address the issue of the United States being in Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala at that time in the 80s. And we went to the city council again and asked them to pass a resolution condemning what the United States was doing involved in those countries. So it boggles my mind, really, that a city council will say it's not our city's business to address issues that Americans are facing, and locally, and statewide, and nationally, and that things that are happening in other places are our concern, and are the city council's concern, and we need to address it. And so that is why Martin Luther King Jr. would say, when we had these summers of riots in the 60s, he would say the reason for the riots in the summer were because of winters of delay. And the United States itself has been implicated in winters of delay. We know that Israel has imprisoned, immobilized the people in the Gaza Strip for a decade and a half, and we said nothing, because Israel is our friend. But we even have to confront friends, and we need to do so. Israel was, when we were having a Free South Africa movement in the late 1980s, and Western European countries and the United States and Great Britain decided to join that movement. Israel didn't. It sent military equipment to South Africa and buttressed the apartheid system there, but we won because there was, so many people fighting against it. And finally, they freed Nelson Mandela. He became president of the Republic of South Africa. And so even though I usually talk about black problems, as Reverend Stummy said, this is an issue that I just cannot understand. The City Council is an organization in the United States. And when things are affecting people in this area, directly or indirectly, we need to address it. And the City Council should be responsible enough to address it. And so I echo the sentiments tonight of passing a resolution for a ceasefire. There's no reason why we shouldn't do it. It's the right thing to do. As the saying goes, as long as people hunger, as long as people thirst, and ignorance and illness and warfare do their worst, as long as there's injustice in any of God's lands, we are our neighbor's keeper and dare not wash our hands. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Do we have any other speakers tonight? I know we maybe had some people out in the foyer, so we'll give a second just in case. Name and city for the record, please.
Kim Jensen Jordan, and I'm a resident of Cedar Falls. One of my passions has been for a number of years the Sartori Memorial Hospital, and witnessing what has happened in Waterloo under the same leadership as Mercy and now a Trinity umbrella, which is a base out of Michigan. The concern is that we're going to be losing our neighborhood hospital, and that is a huge concern. Our city council does sit on the ownership of that property at 515 College Street, which is known as the Sartori Memorial Hospital, but also Mercy One. Concern is the lack of preserving a legacy. The property was looked at and purchased back in 1912. It was founded by the Sartori family. Mr. Sartori Joseph had passed away, but it was a gift to his wife, Teresa. And she was a Cedar Falls Women's Club member here in Cedar Falls. The family left, their son had assigned $15,000, $1,000 per year over the next 15 years for maintenance of the building once it was erected. And over the course of that year, so we went through the roaring 20s of that. I've got a little bit of an education background, and so it's nice to get a little bit of the history first, because it makes sense as to why we should do on our watch a little bit more for the hospital so that we can preserve the wishes and retaining the integrity of that property. I always look at things as how much foot traffic can we associate with that location? Are we sending students? Are we sending patients back home in better shape than they first came there? And in our community, we've witnessed different things through the loss of our Price Lab, the Malcolm Price Laboratory. So that was a great land loss with foot traffic of K through 12 students that integrated with the University of Northern Iowa. We currently have a nursing program at the University of Northern Iowa, and our hospital right here in Cedar Falls would make another great level 1, level 2 assistant to that hospital. Sartori's founded on primary care. In 1974, we had increased to have an x-ray, a physical therapy unit, a dietary, and lab, which we still maintain those. We have also, Dr. Egan has an orthopedic surgery unit that resides there at the 515 location. Concern is that we're losing a lot of our specialists in this area. And when we do that, we're suffering social economic loss. I see healthcare as being one of the things that's going to help drive growth in this community. And the reason I came tonight is because on the agenda, we do have a contract that and thank you very much for extending that and receiving the funding back for property tax that was needed to be retained to the city of Cedar Falls. That is huge to acknowledge that that was underpaid. Because those funds, just like Mr. Sartori's family, wanted to give forward and make those repairs, not fall short on taking care of what we own. And that plays mainstream through almost everything that we have going on in our community. The high school was not quite good enough. The Price Lab was not being held up to standards and repairs were not being made. Sartori, initially in 2020, was noted only to have had the last building permit pulled in 2011, which is just tragic because we have done an amazing update to this facility right here and how much foot traffic is right here. And yet we have that building that's sitting right there that was gifted here. It was $25,000 in 1912. I'm not an advocate of everything moving. Portfolios, we talk about diversity. Diversity means we take care of our core. Our core is right here, and I'm very passionate about that. And I really hope that we can all come together with some of these votes that we're looking at doing in the future, that we can work together. I would like, and this is, I'm planting a seed, I would love to see Mayo Clinic come back as an option to this community. Specialists will follow, integrity, respect will grow. And with that, we will get more development. And what we're doing right now may be seen as not quite good enough. I want to strive for even better. I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have any other public comment for tonight? I'll give a second too, just in case there's anyone in the foyer. Name and city for the record, please.
Hello, my name is John Greer, Cedar Falls, Iowa. We've heard a lot of impassioned and well-researched speeches here today. I must confess myself unprepared. I will be speaking from the heart. Here in this country, we have seen over the past decade flagging confidence in our government at the federal, local, and state level. I'm reminded of an old Chinese proverb, a curse actually. May you live in interesting times. I think we could all agree we are living in very interesting times. Interesting and dangerous times where it seems the very bedrock of our democracy is eroding away. It says on that flag, the Iowa state flag, our liberties we prize, our rights we will maintain. I invite you to think on the notion that a right is merely privilege extended unless enjoyed by everyone. I stand here today to ask you to please endorse this ceasefire resolution. There's no need for this rampant violence anywhere in the world. We see it in Gaza. We see it in Ukraine. We see it all over Africa. I fear that unless we stand strong against violence, we will soon see it here in our country. And therefore, again, I implore you, back this ceasefire resolution. From one concerned citizen to his city council. It would be a strong step towards restoring the confidence of this citizen, and hopefully the others gathered here today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Do we have any other comments tonight? Again, we'll give a second in case they're out in the foyer. All right, seeing none, I did want to take a second, say thank you, everyone, for coming out to talk tonight, especially having talked with several of you through the last couple of weeks. There was a few things I wanted to make sure to point out, because I think it's really important to know. You spoke to some of it in your presentations of feeling uncertain or unwilling or unsafe reaching out and speaking. Some with the House File 2077, some of the concerns about what the state's doing around the freedom of speech to be able to voice their concerns. And I can't, this is my personal speaking here, I can't speak for our council members, and I don't intend to, but I just wanted to, as part of my role as mayor, make a very clear statement that we will stand for the commitment to combat anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab bigotry, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and affirming that right for you to be able to come here to present without feeling there's going to be retaliation, without feeling that there's going to be pushback. That is a part of this process, is having that chance to be able to voice those concerns. And I'm looking at a lot of the ceasefire resolution here. But as well, that First Amendment right to be able to criticize government or government policy, and affirming that criticism of governments in Israel and Palestine is not inherently anti-Semitic or anti-Arab. So regardless of the ceasefire itself, I want to make very clear that, to me, and my belief in what government stands for is the protection of those rights. That is an ingrained part of who we are as a society. And I want to make sure that if anybody does feel that they're not safe in being able to speak out on this, that that's something that I know, talking with everyone, that is a concern, and we want to make sure we stand for those rights. I'll open up in case anybody would like to speak. Just to speak to, there is a work session coming up. I want to call it a work session, a educational event that the Human Rights Commissions are working on together, I believe February 15th, next Thursday, that we'll get more information out on. And then we are as well speaking with our HRC and looking at some of those options for what are those ways that we can support some of that feedback. So again, just want to say thank you for everyone coming out. Again, that's what this forum is for. So thank you all again. And unless there's any last public comments, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. So thank you again. Any council members you'd like to speak at this time? All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we'll be moving on then to staff updates. Ron, does staff have any updates to present tonight?
No staff updates tonight, Mayor.
And we'll give a second just for everyone to clear out. Yeah.
We've talked about it. Yeah, so. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to take a 5-minute break?
Say if council would consensus be amenable to that.
You can call it.
We will take a excuse me. Kevin. What's your name? Kevin, is there anything we need to do officially to take a break?
Just stand in recess for 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll take a recess for 5 minutes.
Till 8:16, 17?
Yeah, 8:17. All right, thank you, everyone, and welcome back. Quick 5-minute break, so we will jump back into the agenda. Let's see, let me find my place on our agenda. So we're down to special order of business. So item number 2, we have a continuation of a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the land use map by changing the designation from low-density residential use, greenways and floodplain use, and neighborhood commercial and mixed use to low-density residential use, and adjust the greenways and floodplain use of property located at north of Aldrich Elementary School and south of West Green Hill Road. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file.
Any staff comments? Yes, I believe we're good. Any public comments? Anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item? All right, so we will close the public hearing, and we will look for a motion for a resolution approving an amendment to the land use map by changing the designation from low-density residential use, greenways and floodplain use, and neighborhood commercial and mixed use to low-density.
Second.
We have a second, and any conversation?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I feel like it's appropriate because I asked for additional information, so I very much appreciate staff's time in providing the extra information. I just, either way that I just, whatever vote I make, I just feel like I need to have this to be able to feel good about it. So I appreciate this additional information. I still, stand behind what I said. I do understand the importance of this area. So I look forward to any further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn. Any others? All right, then we will move for a roll call vote on this item, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And item number 3 is a continuation of a public hearing, also in the proposed rezoning from R1 Residential District and MU, mixed-use residential to RP, planned residence district of property located north of Aldrich Elementary School and south of West Green Hill Road. Any written communications, Madam Clerk?
I have no written communications on file.
And I don't believe we have any staff comments, correct, Ron? Okay, and any public comments on this item as well? Okay, otherwise, we will close the public hearing, and do we have a motion to pass the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
And any discussion? All right, then do another roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. Old business, item number 4, pass ordinance number 3047, imposing the 1% local option sales tax and services tax within the city of Cedar Falls and allocating the revenue derived therefrom. Upon its second consideration, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And
Second.
Any discussion? And a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That passes. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless somebody from the council or public requests that specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the consent calendar to be considered separately, council? Any from the public? All right, so we will then look for a motion to approve items 5 through 11 in the consent calendar.
Motion, I move.
Second. Any discussion? All right, and a voice vote for this. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we'll move on to the resolution calendar. So the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the resolution calendar to be considered separately? Any from council?
Mr. Mayor, 15.
Yes, Councilmember Gill, 15.
Mr. Mayor, 13.
13. And then I am also going to pull number 17. Any others from council? Any from the public? Okay, we will then, do we typically approve all the other items, then go to the, so we will look for a motion to approve, looking at items 13, 15, and 17, we'll be looking to pull separate. Do we typically then do those one at a time?
We'll do a motion for the rest of them.
Okay, so looking to approve the resolution calendar without including items 13, 15, and 17. Do we have
So
a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll move to item 13, first one pulled. I believe somebody else pulled this. I was going to
Mr.
pull it
Mayor?
as well. Yep. Go ahead.
I was reading there, I saw the word should change to must. My concern is that this doesn't prevent us from doing referrals based on topics discussed during the council meeting.
So I did look further in the ordinance. There is also an allowance for a pressing referral, which allows for anything that needs to be done at that time because it wasn't able to be submitted in writing. I can, if I decide it's not pressing, I can say that's not pressing and not allow it, but then you guys also have the ability to supersede that by a majority vote. So in my interpretation, this gets us back to the habit of getting it in writing ahead of time, but still allowing, if there is something that's time specific, to be able to still do that in the meeting if we need to do a pressing referral.
Okay, I guess I have a little concern with the word pressing. You know, what's your definition of pressing? What's mine? I mean, I think it's relevant to discuss city business, whatever is brought up in conversation, and we shouldn't be denied the opportunity to do so. Some of the language that's been used in the past with different mayors, different councils, was we should give wide latitude to do the city's business. So when we're constraining it and say must, that's a gatekeeper on the ability to transact business that comes up in whatever topic is being said. So I think that's a little harsh to put must, because it's worked well for us for years to have should or shall. So it's, don't mean to push back, but that's kind of I guess I'd be curious on your research why we feel you need to go to must.
For me, it was from looking at how we've managed this in the past. A lot of times referrals come up, but there isn't sufficient information given for, I think, this group to make an informed decision on if that should be something moved forward. So I wanted to get us back in the habit, or I'd like to, of submitting it in writing ahead of time with a specific ask, the information to go with it, so that this council can review it in advance and be able to make an informed decision rather than kind of an on-the-spot. We haven't looked into this, so we don't know what to say.
Again, that's the wide latitude situation. There's been feedback from constituents, I know of other councils have received over the years, that we put this in writing, we give it to everybody, and that gives staff a chance to mount a defense against it, particularly if it's changing city policy, because they want city policy to stay the way it is, because that's what they view the policy to be. If someone wants to change the policy, it should be discussed and considered, and not be a must as opposed to should. So that, I think, is important to keep, just like speakers that brought forward concerns,
I'll open up the rest of the council too for comments.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Dunn.
I appreciate the change, and it's not to take away anybody's voice, because I would never advocate for that, and I feel that the clause where it talks about pressing prevents that. So obviously, if the mayor does not feel it's relevant or pressing for this matter, the body as a whole can override that. So I appreciate that part of it. The reason I think it's great, it's for the reason you just said, and it's also kind of, I think Councilman Cruz is also making my point. Having a well-educated, there's been times where maybe a referral has been made, and I may have not, have said no to it, because I don't feel like I had enough information at that time when it just all of a sudden came up to be able to make a decision on whether or not that was a great use of anyone's time or to research it. So I appreciate having the heads up and to be able to educate myself some. Also, I feel like there are times where it's used almost like in the hopes that folks don't quite understand. So I appreciate a more thoughtful, well-informed body. So I appreciate this being in place or proposed.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Schultz.
I agree with Councilman Dunn. My thought, however, is to maybe take some of the wording play out of it. When I see should, it's the opposite of, it's kind of with shall. So I would recommend that we make it shall and not must. The meaning's going to be nonetheless, but maybe not as harsh of a interpretation.
A motion?
So motion to amend.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second. I'll second it.
And so any discussion on that motion to amend, to add shall instead of must?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember?
I feel like I'm having a bit of deja vu here, and I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the same discussion we had the last time this proposal came up. And while I get, the not wanting to be harsh, I think sometimes a good, bold word just makes you know what is intended. I feel like shall is really wishy-washy and doesn't really get us to a different spot than we are right now.
I'd ask Mr. Rogers to give us the interpretation. When in a law, shall is the law and should is the recommendation?
Pretty much. I don't honestly see a great deal of difference between shall and must. It's a directive. Unless council waters down shall, there was a long discussion recently about what shall means. And so it appears the intent is to make this a directive, which means you shall provide it in writing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, from my background, shall, it means shall, and so it is a requirement. I'm in favor of the amendment to shall. I'm in favor of the change generally for two reasons. What Councilmember Dunn said is it allows for it's in fairness to the remainder of the council to prepare for the referrals, number one. Number two, it doesn't decrease the latitude on topics from which we can talk about. It just gives you the avenue to get them on the agenda. And an important part on the agenda is publication to the public so that they know what referrals we'll be discussing at those upcoming meetings. So I think it's a good change.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm appreciative of the word change to shall. I think that's very appropriate. And to Councilman Hawbaker's point, I think having the checks and balances there is that if the mayor doesn't feel as though it's a pressing referral, we have the opportunity as a body to vote one way or the other on that. I think makes that entirely appropriate, so I'd be in support of this.
And Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember,
just to be heard on it, as Councilmember Dunn pointed out last time we talked about this, should versus shall, and I stuck on the side of should last time because of that. We also have the reservation to be able to request a referral be reduced to writing. I think that sometimes can slow down meetings, so I understand this, but we did have some back and forth on this last time, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And I think the reduction from the committees, I'm not 100% sure. I know that's not what we're talking about now, so I'll reserve that comment.
Okay.
But keeping it open as it provides that guidance, I think is still a good way to go.
Okay. All right, so we currently have a motion to amend. Do we want to, so we'll take a vote on that then, a voice vote to amend to replace must with shall. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, so then the motion on the floor then is to approve, currently the motion is to approve item number 13, and it's been motioned and seconded, and continued discussion. Any additional discussion? Dustin, did you want to touch on the other piece of it? And I can speak to it if you...
Sure, no, Mr. Mayor, I think just making mention, last term was when we shifted towards standing committees of those various makeups to allow for some expertise growth. I think if there's an opportunity that exists to increase the expertise of certain council members, maybe we'll explore that. But I think keeping them around and trying them a little bit longer would be the preferred way to go for my vote.
And just for anybody watching that doesn't know, the motion on the floor is to look at adjusting also our committee structures. Currently, we have several different committees for each of the departments, and then one of the council members chairs those. We're looking to kind of consolidate those into the committee of the whole, since all 7 of us, and this is my justification for why I've asked for it, is to consolidate those into the committee of the whole, since all 7 of us serve. And this was based on some feedback I've gotten from council members that would like the mayor to chair those discussions. Some of the intent before was to allow other council members to serve as a chair of a specific committee to be able to build some depth in those areas, but also the practice, the fun process of running a council meeting. So I, though, personally would also like to do more to leverage when we have specific action items and topics, the group's expertise, and have everyone have an area that they're a little more involved in, either through task forces, other issues that come up. So this would be consolidating those committees. Other than the administrative committee, we have ordinances that refer to that specifically, so we'll be leaving that in place. But then also having the mayor be the chair of those committees. So any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor? Just for a point of clarification, would this preclude the opportunity for those subcommittee members to work more closely, or would you still advise that individuals work closely with Ron and departments to gain that expertise?
I would still be in favor of council having areas, especially if you're specifically interested, because I think that expertise does lend some credibility at council to be able to speak to some of those topics. So that's something I would like to talk with everybody one-on-one with, is some areas that you would prefer to have more involvement with. All right, any more discussion? So the motion on the floor is to approve the amended item number 13 that would read, resolution approving and adopting CFD 1121 council policy, city council meeting procedures, with that amendment to change must to shall. And all voting in favor?
Roll call.
Or this is a roll call vote?
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Thank you, Dustin. Were you still waiting to vote? Oh. It might have just jumped ahead without you.
It came up.
6 voting aye, 1 voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. So that the motion passes. And then moving on to item number 15 for a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an amendment to lease with Mercy One Northeast Iowa, formerly known as Wheaton Franciscan Healthcare Iowa, Inc., formerly known as Covenant Healthcare or Health Systems, Inc., extending the term from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2026. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
And open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'll be
Councilmember Lada.
removing myself from this one, as that is a potential conflict of interest for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Lada. Any other discussion on this item?
Well, I had asked for it to be pulled to discuss, one, there's obviously concern within the ward and within the city. I'm also was looking at the 2 5-year term extensions, which really took us to 2036. And I know Councilman Dunn brought up during goal setting what our future plans were with the hospital, and we haven't had the opportunity to really discuss what those options are, and I don't feel comfortable locking into a lease agreement that could potentially be up to it's a December 31st to 2026, with up to 2 remaining additional terms of 5 years each. Does that really lock us into 2036, or would it come back up to vote in 2026?
Ron, could you give some background to this item, just for clarification on what it is?
I'll jump in here, if that's okay. So this, what the original lease provided for these extension terms. So this doesn't affect that. This is simply the tenant exercising its rights under this and squaring up rent owed to date.
And if I can, and clarify me if I say this wrong, but this is actually not for the main portion of the campus. It is just for the small administration building. It was missed that lease wasn't up to date. So this isn't actually for the whole campus. It's just kind of cleaning up what was missed in the lease extension. So it was actually Mercy One contacted us realizing they hadn't been paying us as they should have been leased, so they asked to have this remedied so that they could get it up to date.
So is the rest of the lease for the hospital as a whole?
Separate.
But is it going to 2026 or is it going to 2036?
This amendment only affects I call it the medical office building facility.
In the back, yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor. But that hospital has the 2 5-year extension options as well.
And that we've already signed?
Right?
I don't want to say without reviewing that other lease, what that other lease says. But generally, if memory serves, the lease of the office building tracked with the lease of the hospital itself. But I don't want to represent to you what the extension terms are and how long. I don't want to say that without looking at it.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cruz?
So, Mr. Rogers, then, do you know or can you say that at these 5-year marks, it'll come before council for discussion? Possibly on price or whatever? Or is it just we're renewing it till 2036? And it's up to the hospital to decide whether they want to continue in 5-year increments?
Looking at the terms of the amendment, basically it's changing out the name to reflect the proper party. And then what this does is it's a formal notification of extension, which the original lease requires. It was done in an amendment form because, frankly, the parties missed the time frame, and so they want to rectify that. That's the reason you're seeing it now. Otherwise, formal notification to extend is up to the tenant. That's original term of the lease.
So if they don't notify the city, they want to continue another 5 years, the lease terminates.
Correct. Yes, exactly right.
And if they notify the city, then it'll be a discussion item on a future.
Right.
Council. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, then we have a motion on the floor to approve.
Any public comment?
Oh, excuse me. Public comment? Thank you for the reminder. All right, so then we have the motion on the floor to approve item number 15. And this is a roll call vote.
Did I not? I swear I did.
You've only had a couple of years to practice this.
No.
You still didn't do it.
What? Yes, I did.
You got it.
Oh, there we go. We got it.
6 voting aye, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And moving on to item number 17, a resolution approving and adopting the Imagine College Hill Vision Plan. Thank you for the reminder. Do we have any public comment on this item? Yeah, no.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Need to have a motion and a second before we discuss.
Okay, so first we'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second? All right, all yours, Noah.
Thank you. I had to write down what I was going to say, so just bear with me. I apologize. I want to reaffirm my support for the Imagine College Hill Vision Plan as it comes back before the council for adoption approval. In speaking with leaders of the student body within our organization, our hope, obviously, is to see College Hill and its surrounding areas really grow or blossom, develop again. As of now, our solution has been confusing. This document is a vision. It isn't necessarily a commitment, like some have made it out to be in certain ways, and there have been concerns over this leading to form-based zoning throughout the community. However, if you look closely in the plan, this issue is addressed pretty clearly. The plan is accurate in that it notes zoning code updates or changes may need to take place in specific areas of town, just depending on that. I'll talk about that in a second. Some of the old code, as the plan notes, can be restrictive in changes that may need to happen, and the plan notes that as well. To simply say that these kinds of zoning updates are detrimental to the entire community, as has been said quite a few times over the last few meetings, is very misleading. As form-based zoning specifically, the plan clearly states that this kind of zoning will only be necessary for certain districts. My gosh, I think I just lost my place. And I look forward to working on those as addressed in Council Referral 41, which I appreciated that being on there. I was able to find that information for everybody's reference on pages 22, 23, 34, 35, 36, and 37 of the plan. I encourage you to look at it. As for concerns over size and scope of the plan, districts are clearly laid out on pages 34 and 36, as I'm sure everybody's aware, into 9 different sections. Adopting this plan will allow the council to work within those boundaries to make necessary changes to develop these areas of town. And, the plan is unique in that it provides data, geographical information, and historical context to these various sections, whether it be General College Hill, the University neighborhood, Searly Park, or even Southwest or Fairview, which I know are not in the core College Hill like some continue to talk about. Students who live in these various areas deserve growth and attention too, even though they were not on what we would consider to be the core College Hill. So I think we owe that the discussion it is owed, rather than just having a discussion about names, which to me seems like we've been doing over and over and over again. We can call it whatever we want to, but I think we can all agree that change is necessary, and this plan is a good starting point. I look forward to future discussions with the body, and I think we can make all these areas of town, whether they're in, again, the core College Hill or not, good for students and families. There seems to be this adversarial thing that I've heard. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to do that. This 94-page document isn't perfect, but adopting it will allow us to make some real moves this time, and I hope the council will make that happen. And again, I'm here. I'm excited to work on that, and I know in the past it's stalled in various referral stages or no referrals or nothing at all. So I really support the plan. People I'm talking to support it, and I hope you all will support it tonight. And as student liaison, I respectfully urge you all to vote yes, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Noah. And quick, I just wanted to point out, part of the reason I wanted to pull this is, so this was submitted by Councilmember Hawbaker along with council referral item number 41 on our agendas, with a referral for the committee of the whole, or for a staff to bring back to committee of the whole a discussion on specific action items that we plan to take. If approved, that would be the next steps from this. Aaron, did you want to take a second to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did request the resolution as well as the referral, and specifically to focus on the character districts 1, 2, and 3, without excluding 4, because that abuts those areas, just so we could get the ball rolling. We heard tonight on the presentation from the Hearst Center about how the master plan is sort of the general concept, but it's not a design, it's not the specifics, and we've never taken the action to at least have specifics put before us as far as what possible zoning changes may look like. And so that's why I asked that they be done in tandem, and that's what I'm hoping for as a result of the referral.
So real quick, and I'm not sure on the exact, I'll let Kevin or someone correct me, or Dustin, you do the best job of that. We're looking to, if council would by consensus be open to it, looking at doing the item number 17 along with item number 41, since they were kind of intended to be 2 items that go together. If there's a consensus support to look at considering those items.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Councilmember.
I guess the comment I wanted to make was at our work session, we never definitively decided what adopt meant. There's some people feel that it's going to be a directive to staff to march forward with what talking points are said in the document. And in the referral, it says discussion for staff to bring to council a plan. I think it should be council directing staff for a plan, because that's the discussion Councilman Hawbaker's alluding to, and not just adopt the whole thing in its entirety, because there's a lot of action steps in the vision plan that direct things to happen. So we haven't defined the distinction of adopt versus receive and file. To me, we received and file, and that's where it sits right now. And then we go to the referral to go to the committee of the whole to decide what to move forward. We don't readopt the plan because then that puts in motion the action.
I'll open up also to other council conversation. I will say, quick, talking with staff, the intent and the way it's been taken for how this has been proposed is that the referral to bring back more information to the council or committee of the whole would be to discuss those next steps forward. And council is planning to take no action until that review of the next steps forward has been reviewed and agreed upon by council.
Council takes no action or staff takes no action?
Or, excuse me, staff will take no action until council has taken action on their plan of action. So that would be the next steps is council will not, or excuse me, staff will not be taking any actionable steps at this point. They would be bringing back a kind of laid out document of the next steps that would be
Mr.
taken
Mayor,
from
then
this.
by what you're saying, 17 would be moot if we're going to use 41, or whatever it is here, 41 as the guide, because you mentioned putting them together.
And I would say that depends on your definition of adoption, which I think is what we're opening up for
We
discussion
received
and
and
what we're
filed
voting
it,
on.
so then it's a working document to receive and file and use it going forward.
We'll open up to other
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
comments here. Yes, Councilmember Ganfield.
Just to comment on your earlier question about combining the items, I see them as two separate items, so I think we keep to the resolution and then deal with the referral later. As a point of commenting on that one, I think that item 41 could proceed without being subservient to item 17. That's one of the reasons for the distinction. I think we were moving in the direction of a later referral already as it stands today, so I don't see the need to fully readopt until we get some direction, and we can provide that through committee of the whole as that resolution is already passed for future meetings.
Open up other discussion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I appreciate the fact that we had a work session, and you know, even prior to my being on council, there was a lot of discussions about what adopt means. What's the vision plan mean? Is it a commitment? Is it not? And at some point, though, I think there needs to be action. To me, much like we heard about the Hearst Center tonight, it is simply the adoption of a plan, a vision, like a master plan. It's something that gives the parameters for the staff that when we direct them to work on the character districts 1, 2, and 3, they know what we're asking of them, and they know what they can look at to bring back to the council. And so we can quibble about the meanings of adopt, or shall, or should. It is a master plan, a vision that I think, to Noah's point, that we need to adopt to show our support for the university, and then we'll work on the details, which is the reason for the referral.
Thank you, Councilmember Hawbaker. Any additional discussion from other council members?
Can I call the question?
All right, the question's been called.
So we have to vote on that.
Yep, so we have to vote on the call to question?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to
If
motion or
there's-
anything?
Right, no debate.
Yep, so all in favor of calling the question? Say
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, so we're calling the question and moving on to approval. We have a motion to approve resolution approving and adopting the Imagine College Hill Vision Plan. It has been motioned and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Sorry, Kevin. I know we called the question, but we did not provide for public comment.
I believe I asked for public comment before. Oh, do we need public comment for the call to question?
No. No. So I'm not, sorry, I don't understand the question.
I don't know that we give an opportunity for public comment for that resolution before calling the question.
We did that first.
I think Noah started public comment.
Okay, I missed it. Sorry.
I actually did in the right spot this time.
All right.
So we have a roll call vote then.
Okay, I'm screwing up. This is not, okay. There we go.
6 vote. Oh,
I hit, oh.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion passes. So we will now move on to ordinances. So item number 38, to pass an ordinance amending Chapter 17, Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances relative to the cemetery section upon its first consideration. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been motion seconded. Do we have any public comment? And any council discussion? All right, we need a roll call vote, please.
Kim, I think we're voting on the wrong item.
We are.
Sorry, my machine went wacky.
Do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I can do it. Do it again.
Cemetery ordinance, right? Correct, okay.
Cemetery.
I'm sitting there going,
Do we need to vote on the College Hill thing again to clear this out, or how do I?
you'll need to hit refresh again, Gil.
I don't have a refresh option.
Just submit,
I have-
just submit a
Oh.
vote and
Submit,
then
and then
it'll go
it'll
through.
pop up to the next one.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we'll move on to item number 39, pass an ordinance amending Chapter 23, Traffic and Motor Vehicle of the Code of Ordinances relative to the speed limit on certain portions of West 27th Street upon its first consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
And any public comment? And any council discussion? All right, and a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we'll move on to allow bills and claims. So allow bills and
moved.
claims for February 5th. Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve.
Seconded. Any public comment? Any discussion from council? And another roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any council updates and announcements? All right, then we will move on to council referrals. So again, item number 41 is to refer to Committee of the Whole. This was submitted by Councilmember Hawbaker. To refer to Committee of the Whole, discussion for staff to bring to council a plan to utilize funding allocated in the CIP for fiscal year 25 for proposals for changes to zoning and parking for the College Hill character areas 1, 2, and 3, as designated by the College Hill Vision Plan, similar to the character districts established for the downtown. Note, priority should be given to areas 1, 2, and 3. However, the impact and future possible changes to areas 4 and beyond can and should be considered in the recommendations. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Any discussion from,
Mr. Mayor.
do we do public input for referrals? So real quick, any public input? Yeah. Well, you would be on the staff side, so public input first. Okay, and we'll move to Councilmember Cruz first.
Thank you. Based on your remarks a little bit ago, would we reverse the discussion be for council to direct staff? This says staff to bring to council a plan. Staff doesn't know what the plan is until council debates it at a work session.
My intention or my understanding would be taking the College Hill Vision Plan, looking at that and bringing back their recommendations on the next steps that would be recommended. And then council will be able to give input on that recommendation list.
Well, the document gives a laundry list of action items. So we would discuss, and I don't think that takes away from what Councilman Hawbaker wants to do, or any of us want to do. This is saying staff leads the discussion.
Councilmember Hawbaker, all of you, since you.
I actually, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I disagree with that. I think staff brings the ideas and what possibilities there are for maybe zoning changes, changes to the parking downtown. And I'm assuming there'd be more than one option. And we would have then an opportunity to look at concrete suggestions for what those improvements may be and give up or down votes down the road. So I for one, am not going to propose the ordinance to you, Councilman Cruz, okay, or what the parking changes should be. I need to be educated about what the possibilities are consistent with the plan, and then that's why it would be part of the committee as a whole, so we can discuss that.
As long as it's a back and forth free discussion and not saying staff says this is what it's going to be, and then you got to fight it to change it, because we experienced that with the downtown.
What?
Freudian slip.
No.
Many a truth is said in jest.
I assume that we'll have a working discussion.
I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was only going to be my question to Mr. Gaines. If passing or adopting the College Hill plan, do you have enough information from that to brainstorm with your staff on ideas to bring us? Or do you need us to meet as a committee to prolong this even further? I'm not trying to bait you into this, Ron, but...
Well, contrary to some beliefs, staff's not the dictator here. But, so one of the things that we'll do is we'll bring back what we see as an outline plan to move forward in looking at those character areas that are identified under the referral item number 41.
And if I can add to that, I've gotten some feedback from everyone since the work session, and that would be also now the reminder email, but would like everybody's feedback now on what were your primary concerns or primary areas you did like of the plan, and we'll take that into consideration as it's being drafted, so at least that first. Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
My biggest concern, and I voiced that continually, is the actual areas that are covered by Area 3, the actual streets, and then 4, previous council had concerns about the scope, the shape of each area, that sort of thing. So as long as that's fluid from staff, then go for it.
And I can make sure and review that with staff so that we, I commit that as the quarterback.
Working mayor, I like that.
It's kind of my job, I guess. Any other discussion? And we've got a motion on the floor then to approve item 41. It's been seconded, and we require a voice vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carries. And then item number 42, council referrals to refer to the Committee of the Whole discussion on the city's current conflict of interest disclosure requirements. This was also submitted by Councilmember Hawbaker. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Open for any public comment? And council discussion. Councilmember Hawbaker, if you want to clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, when I was signing off the paperwork to become a council member, I think our disclosure form just says, do you have any conflicts? And it's kind of separate and distinct from the disclosure form that I have to file as an employee of the state. And I thought maybe it'd be an opportunity for the council to see if maybe there was a willingness to change and have, a little more detail. But I can get into the detail in the meeting. But just to take a look at it.
Sounds great.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, is there a
Councilmember
timeline
Cruz?
on this? Because usually when we do referrals, we have timelines.
I was going to ask, we briefly this morning looked at the calendar. We know the next meeting we've got kind of filled up. We'd probably be looking at,
Yeah, I thought we were anticipating the first one in March, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
As a work session.
Yep, if that works for everyone.
I'll be
It
there.
says Committee of the Whole, though.
Yeah, so, excuse me, actually, I think that would be a question for the group was, Aaron, maybe you can clarify if you feel it'd be a better work session discussion or...
Actually, I think it probably would be a better work session discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
So,
Councilmember
I
Lada?
actually would propose that we take it to Committee of the Whole. The whole point of this is going to be for transparency, so let's have the video too.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm convinced, yeah.
All right, so we would be planning then, just for clarification, beyond just the written version here, would be to bring it to Committee of the Whole, look at the first meeting in March. Okay, so we are motion seconded. We need a voice vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we can now, if I can get my pages back in order. So we will now move to executive session for the third week in a row. Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Just kidding. So we'll be moving to executive session to discuss collective bargaining per Iowa Code Section 20.17, parentheses 3, as negotiating sessions, strategy meetings of public employers, mediation, and a deliberative process of arbitrators. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, we need a roll call vote to go into executive session.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And just for the public's information, we will be back afterwards to adjourn the meeting, but no further city business will take place. So you're welcome to stay around, but thank you everyone for being here.
Calm down.